Welcome to part 2 of this Unit 1 review on linear equations. The ninth problem that I have is to solve this equation, this being x plus 2 all divided by 6 is equal to 1 minus x plus 1 divided by 7. For this one, we're going to do the least common denominator again, which for this would be 6 times 7, so 42. And we're multiplying everything by that 42. So that is going to become for this. So 42 times the x plus 2 divided by 6. 42 and the 6, they cancel out to make 7 times x plus 2 is equal to 1 times 42, so 42 minus x plus 1 divided by 7 times 42, so 6 times x plus 1. Okay, we're going to distribute the 7 and the negative 6 respectively. So 7x plus 14 is equal to 42 minus 6x minus 6. On the right-hand side, we can combine the 42 and the negative 6. So 7x plus 14 is equal to 42 minus 6, that makes 36, minus 6x. So for this, we can add 6x to both sides. So adding the 6x to both sides, and I'll write that as this. I'm also going to subtract the 14. Okay, so that's going to make 13x. 13x is equal to 22. And so this one does not come out evenly. Dividing makes 22/13. And just leave that as a fraction, don't bother with the decimal. So 22 over 13. Let me just quickly fix these two to make it more legible. Okay, so the solution 22 over 13. The 10th one, in a triangle, the measures of the three angles are x minus 16, and x plus 7. We want the measure of each angle. So for this one, they assume that you know that in order to find that measure of each of the three angles, you would add these up, and they're supposed to make 180. So x plus x minus 16 plus x plus 7 is equal to 180. Combine the three x's and the negative 16 and the 7. This makes 3x minus 9 is equal to 180. So from here, we can add the 9 to both sides. So this would be 3x is equal to 189. And then divide by 3. X would be equal to 63. Based on this equation. And with that being said, we have our three angle measurements. 63 degrees. The second one took 63 minus 16, so that makes 47 for the second one. And the third one wanted to add 7 to the 63, which would make 70 degrees for three angle measurements. Question number 11. I have you are choosing between two health clubs. Club A offers a membership fee of $12 plus a monthly fee of $16. Club B offers a membership for a fee of $14 plus a monthly fee of $15. We want to know how many months will the total cost of each health club be the same, and what will be the total cost of each club? X in this case is the number of months. The number of months. So in this case, for Club A, this would be 16x plus 12. Club B would be 15x plus 14. And we want to set these equal to each other for the costs to be the same. So from this, we can subtract the 15x. And subtract 12 from both sides. So doing both operations at the same time, again, x is equal to 14 minus 12, so 2 would be the solution. So in this particular case, this would be 2 months. Would be our solution for the cost of each club here to be the same. And to find the total cost of the club for each club, since they're equal, you could choose whichever one. It doesn't really matter which one that you use, as long as you use one of them. But to find this total cost, you do, for example, 16 times 2 plus 12. So 32 plus 12, this would give us a value of $44. No matter which club that you choose for that. And this is total cost. All right, number 12, as I move this down a bit. Okay. Number 12, after a 70% reduction, you purchase a new DVD player on sale for $174. We want the original price of this DVD player. This original price is going to be a variable X. So in order for us to get that, we take the original price, subtract 70% of it, due to that 70% reduction, to get 174. And that is not going to look like a 7. 174. Okay. So in order for us to do that, we have to combine the 1x and the negative 0.7x. So that makes 0.3x is equal to 174. And then we're going to divide by this 0.3. And it'll be helpful if it shows up legibly. Dividing by 0.3 to both sides of this. All right. So x would be whatever 174 divided by 0.3 is, which in this case makes $580. Number 13. The selling price of a refrigerator is $946.25. If the markup is 25% of the dealer's cost, we want the dealer's cost of the refrigerator. So this dealer's cost is going to be a variable X. So this takes the dealer's cost, it marks it up, so it adds 25% of its value. And doing so would give us a value of $946.25. The x plus 0.25x makes 1.25x. And that'll be equal to $946.25. So for this, we're going to divide by that 1.25. From both sides of this. So then x is going to be whatever $946.25 divided by 1.25 is. And in this case, this would be $757. So quite a markup from that. Question number 14. I want to solve C is equal to 1/4 times H times Q plus B for the variable Q. So for this, since we have that fraction, it's a good idea to multiply by that denominator to help clear that fraction out of here. So both sides of this getting multiplied by 4. This will make 4C is equal to H times Q plus B. So for us to solve for Q, we're first going to divide by H. Which would then mean that this would be 4C divided by H is equal to Q plus B. And then since we're solving for Q, we're going to subtract B from both sides. So Q is going to be this value 4C divided by H minus B. And this last one, solve J is equal to P plus H times G for the variable H. We're first going to subtract this P over. I should probably make noise in writing this. The capitalization does matter. Meaning, if you put a lowercase q instead of an uppercase q, it's going to mark that as wrong. This would be J minus the uppercase P is equal to H times G. And we're solving for H, so we're going to divide by G. So therefore, H is going to be whatever this makes. So J minus P divided by G. So let me know if any of you have any questions or concerns. Thank you.